On May the 10th of 2018 in Marion County, Florida, teenager Cheyenne Kroll was stopped at a traffic light in a 2017 Hyundai Elantra, in which her mother, Sandra Clarkston, was a passenger. Anjanette Missette came up from behind at high speed and plowed her Chevrolet Avalanche into the back of the Elantra. The latter vehicle was launched forward into a trailer carrying horses, but neither the vehicle's driver nor the animals were hurt. Kroll survived the crash, but Clarkston, who'd celebrated her 60th birthday the previous day, was left in critical condition. She died at the Ocala Regional Medical Center on May the 14th. Missette was found to be more than twice over the legal drink driving limit and taken into custody in the accident's immediate aftermath. A booking photo showed Missette, who also went by her maiden name Wilk, posing for the camera with a wide smile on her face. It went viral and sparked outrage from Clarkston's family, given the fact that Missette seemed in high spirits in spite of causing the fatal accident. During her court appearance, she tearfully apologized to the victim's family and admitted that she had a drinking problem. In May of 2019, she pleaded no contest to DUI manslaughter and 2 counts of DUI with property damage. The 45-year-old was sentenced to 11 years in prison and 4 years of probation. Number 9. Megan McCulla. In July of 2010, Florida woman Megan McCulla went out drinking in Tampa with a friend and reportedly had no intention of driving. The 27-year-old did eventually get behind the wheel and headed home after her companion had decided to leave with her boyfriend. McCulla was subsequently arrested on DUI charges and had her photo taken in an orange jumpsuit. Once online, her mugshot bounced around several websites until it was made into a meme and uploaded to Reddit on April the 23rd, 2013. The post received thousands of upvotes and hundreds of comments within 48 hours. 27-year-old McCulla's mugshot was made into many other attractive convict memes, effectively turning her into an internet sensation roughly 3 years after her arrest. Countless admirers reacted to the photo with humor, curiosity, or declarations of love. McCulla, a mother of 4, spoke to the media in the aftermath of her newfound fame to say that the photo had been taken while she was drunk and after she'd been crying. She claimed, "I don't think it's that good a picture. There are other ones I would prefer." Number 8. Andrea Espinosa. Law enforcement in Boise, Idaho, was flagged down by a man in late December of 2014. Moments earlier, he'd spotted a woman identified as 25-year-old Andrea Espinosa walking alone on the side of the road. He'd asked her if she was all right, at which point she reportedly jumped into his car and told him to drive. The man decided to alert the police instead, but as he was drawing officers' attention, Espinosa got behind the wheel of his vehicle and tried to flee. She was stopped by an officer who then went to remove her from the driver's seat. Espinosa struck the officer in the face with a closed fist and then kneed him in the thigh while she was being transferred to the police cruiser. Espinosa, who reportedly seemed confused and inconsistent during her interviews with the law enforcement, was booked in the Ada County Jail. Her mugshot apparently confirmed the officer's description of her mental state at the time, as Espinosa displayed a wide smile in spite of her serious charges. She faced 2 felony counts of assault or battery on a police officer and a misdemeanor count of resisting and obstructing. Number 7. Jeremy Doel Navaro. Florida teen Ferron Williams was sitting on the porch of a house in Ocala while using the Wi-Fi of a nearby Hardee's restaurant on January the 27th of 2022. A gunman came up to Williams from the roadway and shot him before fleeing. The 19-year-old, who had autism, ran away after being shot but ultimately collapsed on the sidewalk. Williams succumbed to his injuries and a murder investigation was launched, but it would take roughly 14 months for a suspect to be arrested. The police identified the shooter as 20-year-old Jeremy Doel Navaro, but his connection with the victim wasn't specified. Navaro was taken into custody by Ocala police in late March of 2023, and a video of his arrest would show the man smiling as he was placed in a cop car. Navaro also smirked in his booking photo and had not entered a plea as of the latest updates on the matter. Number 5. Lindsay Evans. In the fall of 2008, Miss Teen Louisiana Lindsay Evans and 3 of her friends were at Posado's restaurant in Bossier City. Evans' friend, 22-year-old Jennifer Martin, would later claim that they were ready to pay their $46 bill but then decided to simply skip out on it because the service was so slow. 18-year-old Evans, however, forgot her purse and in spite of leaving the restaurant without paying, went back to retrieve it. By then, the police had been called and were talking to the manager. Law enforcement recognized Evans from her driver's license when she returned to the establishment. They also found Xanax pills and a bag of marijuana, which meant that the team was also arrested for drug possession in addition to theft. True to her beauty queen title, Evans posed for her booking photo, which drew the attention of multiple media outlets, which subsequently covered her story. Number 4. Sarah Seight. Following her arrest on April the 28th of 2016, Sarah Seight's mugshot caused a stir on multiple social media platforms. Pulaski County court records indicated that she was taken into custody on a failure to appear warrant after skipping a court date related to a December 2014 arrest on charges of driving without insurance and careless driving. Seight was dubbed Jailhouse Bay or Prison Bay, and comments from her online suitors ranged from offers to bail her out to marriage proposals. Data from the analytics website Keyhole indicated that the Prison Bay hashtag had reached an audience of over 2 million accounts within weeks of Seight's arrest. The 24-year-old had been in trouble with the law in the past. On December the 10th of 2012, she'd offered a male acquaintance a ride in the parking lot of a Target store. Seight drove the man around to the back of the store where her accomplice, Ladarius Laren Scales, was waiting. He held the victim at gunpoint, robbed him of $380 and struck him in the head. Seight was charged with aggravated robbery, first-degree battery, kidnapping, hindering apprehension, and tampering with evidence. She ultimately pleaded guilty only to hindering apprehension and was given 5 years of probation. Scales was sentenced to 10 years in prison in the incident's wake. Number 3. Alisa Siguro Bathik. 18-year-old Alisa Siguro Bathik was arrested on drug charges by law enforcement in North Carolina in December of 2014 and subsequently uploaded her mugshot on Twitter, where it was rapidly shared thousands of times. Bathik claimed in her post that she'd surrendered to the police and was released within hours, implying that other rumors about her arrest were false before ending the post with, "And my mugshot's cute." Numerous users asked about the reason for her arrest, and Bathik replied to one of them, "Xanax, homie," adding that she'd been caught because her ex-boyfriend had told on her. The cute mugshot girl, as the 18-year-old came to be known, was arrested for shoplifting in Raleigh only 2 months after the drug arrest, resulting in another mugshot that was similar to her previous one. Number 2. Lorena Tivera. In the summer of 2011, beauty queen Lorena Tivera was arrested on suspicion of shoplifting at a mall in El Paso, Texas. 21-year-old Tivera had won the Miss El Paso Teen USA in 2006 and 2 years later became Miss El Paso USA. Later on, she found work as an instructor for a local modeling agency. Her August the 5th arrest reportedly stemmed from her trying to walk out of a Dillard's department store with a $69 shirt for which she hadn't paid. She was confronted by employees who waited with her until the police arrived at the scene. Tivera faced the charge of theft of an item over $50 but under $500. Speaking of her arrest, the beauty queen was quoted by a Channel 9 KTSM reporter as saying that the details about the incident were misconstrued. Tivera also had 2 outstanding traffic warrants, according to the El Paso Times. If you're in need of more of a daily they will kill you fix, then we have our earlier release on when good intentions go wrong lined up for you after number 1. Stay tuned if you'd like. Number 1. Jeremy Meeks. In June of 2014, several men were arrested in California during a multi-agency gang sweep called Operation Ceasefire. Among those taken into custody was Jeremy Meeks, a member of the Crips gang, who was at the time in his early 30s. His mugshot was posted on the Facebook page of the Stockton Police Department, and within 24 hours, it generated over 15,000 likes and thousands of comments. The bulk of the attention came from women smitten by Meeks' looks. He became known as the Hot Felon, and his fulminant internet fame paralleled his legal troubles. On February the 5th, Meeks was convicted in a federal court of being a felon in possession of a firearm. The following month, White Cross Management announced that they'd signed Meeks. His modeling career, however, would be placed on hold as he was sentenced to 27 months in prison, of which he served less than half before being released in June of 2016. The following year, Meeks made his runway debut and walked for Philip Plein during New York Fashion Week. His modeling career continued to grow and came to include several more collaborations with Philip Plein as well as Tommy Hilfiger and other brands. He appeared on a number of magazine covers, took part in successful product campaigns, and started working as an actor. In September of 2019, Frankfurt-based fashion company Fashion Concept GmbH announced a $15 million deal with Meeks to produce a fashion line in his name. In the spring of 2023, Meeks told the media that he was working with a writer on a memoir about his rise to prominence from a rough background. He claimed the book would touch upon several harsh realities of his life, including growing up with a heroin-addicted mother and father who'd brutally murdered a family friend. The memoir would also delve into his affiliations with gangs, being shot 5 times, and the arrest that inadvertently led to his success. Number 7. Sloadanka Tossich. In 2015, Sloadanka Tossich, a former Miss Bosnia, was arrested in Croatia and extradited to her home country to face charges in connection to the attempted assassination of a local gangster. Tossich was a central figure in one of 32 people targeted in an undercover investigation codenamed Operation Doel. It was aimed at a series of gangland killings and robberies that Interpol estimated at close to $6 million. The most severe of the charges levied against Tossich was the attempted murder of gangland figure Georgi Zdrail. While serving 20 years for an unrelated murder, Zdrail testified of the hit that nearly ended his life and how Tossich had lured him into an ambush in 2006. At the time, Tossich was dating Darko Ilez, a rival of Zdrail's and a man alleged by investigators to have run one of the largest groups in organized crime in Bosnia. The model, knowing that Zdrail was infatuated with her, sent him a text asking for a ride to the village of Pavlovac, Croatia. Once they were there, Tossich reportedly gave a hand signal and Zdrail's rivals opened fire on him. He survived the assassination attempt and, in the aftermath, Tossich fled to Serbia. In spite of her criminal affiliations, the model's career blossomed as she appeared on the cover of Serbian Playboy and on an equivalent of the Survivor TV show. As investigations into Ilez's criminal activity progressed and Operation Doel was set in motion, the former Playboy model was arrested. In 2016, she was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Number 6. Renato Sibra. In December of 2012, male model Renato Sibra was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison after he was found guilty of killing a man with whom he'd been involved and mutilating his body. Sibra and 65-year-old Carlos Castro, both from Portugal, had arrived in New York City in late December of 2011. They reportedly attended some Broadway shows and spent New Year's Eve in Times Square. A year prior, Sibra was a contestant on Pursuit of a Dream in his home country, which hunted for modeling talent. He wasn't the winner, but did emerge with a modeling contract. He had met Castro, a celebrity television journalist, through Facebook, and while multiple sources described the two as a couple, some referred to the latter as Sibra's sugar daddy. Friends whom they'd visited in New York speculated that there was friction between the two men towards the end of the trip, allegedly stemming from jealousy. Then, Castro's brutalized body was found in a room at the Intercontinental in Times Square. Investigators determined that he'd been struck with his laptop and a wine bottle prior to being castrated with a corkscrew. He later succumbed to his injuries, and shortly after the attack, law enforcement apprehended Sibra at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital, where he'd sought care under his real name. The model was charged with second-degree murder, to which, during his trial, he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Sibra's defense maintained that he'd suffered a psychotic break and believed to be on a mission from God to kill Castro, whom he saw as possessed by a demon. After bludgeoning the victim to death, Sibra claimed he'd worn his testicles as a bracelet and drank his blood. Prosecutors argued that the model had committed the grisly murder because Castro was trying to end their relationship. In the aftermath, he disconnected the hotel phone and dismantled the victim's cell phone before stealing $1,600 from his wallet and their flight itinerary, apparently intending to flee. Mental health experts diagnosed Sibra with bipolar disorder, but the notion that he'd been in control of his actions prevailed, and a jury found him guilty of murder. Number 5. Simone Pharaoh. Australian model Simone Pharaoh's foray into crime began in the 1990s when, reportedly encouraged by her mother, she began working as a high-end escort. Pharaoh, who was also working as a bikini model, then started dating bodybuilder and part-time model Brett Boyd. when she was in her early 20s. Pharaoh would later liken the relationship to that of gangsters Bonnie and Clyde. She and Boyd were in the process of setting up an erotica website, but in doing so reportedly racked up significant debt to figures of Sydney's criminal underworld. On June the 14th, 1998, Boyd was left disfigured by a mail bomb addressed to Pharaoh, sent to his North Shore home. The bodybuilder lost an eye and a thumb as the package exploded in his face. Pharaoh, fearing for her safety, fled to California, where, in the years that followed, she continued to build upon her modeling career and unsuccessfully tried becoming a pop star under the name Simone Star. The former Penthouse pet, who'd also been voted as one of the world's most attractive women by readers of FHM, then allegedly masterminded an international drug trafficking ring. She ran it from her West Hollywood apartment and mailed methamphetamine to Australian buyers in packages disguised as bath products or small fountain kits. Pharaoh, who conducted transactions using a multitude of aliases, reportedly used her modeling career as a front and enlisted employees as accomplices in the operation. The Drug Enforcement Agency in the US caught on to her criminal activity, and in October of 2009, she was arrested by Australian federal police upon returning to her home country from Hawaii. Pharaoh, then in her mid-30s, claimed that her employees had taken control of her bank accounts, email addresses, and mobile phones without her knowledge to run the drug network. She then told the court that her accounts manager, Sandra Clarkston, had admitted to having been funding her career and lavish lifestyle in the US by sending drug packages to Australia, which she'd allowed to continue. In October of 2009, Rian took his own life in a Hollywood apartment only days after law enforcement had contacted him for questioning. Prosecutors would accuse Pharaoh of being the kingpin, with evidence indicating that, aside from becoming addicted to meth herself, she'd personally contacted buyers and threatened those in her debt to send biker enforcers after them. Pharaoh eventually pleaded guilty to importing a marketable quantity of a border-controlled drug. She was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison and was paroled in 2019. Number 4. Bruna Christine Menzes de Castro. In February of 2021, Brazilian model Bruna Christine Menzes de Castro turned herself into the authorities in the Guiana state for failing to attend prior hearings and court-ordered community service appointments. The 31-year-old model, whom local media outlets dubbed the Barbie of crime, had been convicted of purchase fraud in September of 2015. She had accepted payment for 2 mobile phones which were never delivered. While the incident spearheaded her conviction, local authorities reported that over 100 people had complained of being scammed by De Castro, who hadn't sent them their ordered products, citing family or health issues. The model had also allegedly posed as her own father to scam her ex-boyfriend by falsely claiming she had cancer and needed money for treatment, conning the man out of over $2,600. She handled her illicit gains through at least 10 different bank accounts. A Guyana judge took into consideration that she was the mother of 2 underage children during sentencing and opted for house arrest, community service, and a fine equivalent to 10 minimum wages. De Castro paid the fine but did no community service and missed all of the 6 hearings she was supposed to attend. The authorities faced difficulty in locating her as she'd changed her address without notifying the court, prompting a judge to conclude De Castro was perhaps thinking she was above the law. The model surrendered to the authorities after a warrant had been put out for her arrest on February the 18th of 2021. Number 3. Jaime and Claudia Ray. Colombian model Jaime Ray was arrested at an airport in the capital city of Bogota in 2016 while trying to flee the country to Miami. 21-year-old Jaime and her sister Claudia had warrants out for their arrest after they'd allegedly kidnapped and tortured fellow model Carolina Munoz, aged 23. The incident followed a social media dispute between the sisters and Munoz, who'd later admit to the police that she'd created fake Twitter accounts and shared unflattering photos of the sisters, reportedly showing them before they'd gotten plastic surgery. Jaime and Claudia found out that Munoz was responsible, and on January the 31st of 2015, they abducted her from a Bogota restaurant and drove to a remote spot in the countryside. It was there that the Rays submitted her to prolonged torture, throughout the night. Munoz would subsequently claim that her torment included being hit, bitten, electrocuted, and having her hair shaved off. The sisters also cut her clothes and left her completely naked. They then forced Munoz to surrender her social networking passwords and subsequently uploaded naked photos of her on the internet. Jaime and Claudia threatened Munoz that should the feud continue, they'd throw acid on her face without ever facing legal consequences because they knew powerful people. The victim was abandoned in the street and she later contacted the authorities. Updates indicated that Claudia was still at large at the time of Jaime's arrest. Number 2. Liliana Venegas. In late March of 2016, Canadian businessman Alvin Mulhai was in Miami, Florida, celebrating his brother-in-law's bachelor party. In the early hours of the morning on March the 28th, the 40-year-old was approached by Liliana Venegas, aged 25, outside of Nikki Beach nightclub. After the model, originally from Bogota, Colombia, reportedly told him, "I don't like young boys, I like men." The pair went back to Malhai's room at Lowe's Hotel. He'd hoped that they would become intimate, but the model told him she'd had too much to drink. They fell asleep next to each other after downing a few more shots, but later, Malhai awoke to Venegas rushing out of the room. He then noticed that his $28,000 Rolex was missing and chased after her, but she was able to escape after a friend picked her up in a Mercedes-Benz. Miami police caught up with Venegas and her accomplice shortly after and arrested them both. It was subsequently revealed that on February the 19th, she'd run a similar scam on a man named Robert Mocchia, whom she'd drugged before making off with $30,000 worth of valuables, including a Versace chain and a luxury watch. On February the 15th, the career criminal had gone home with a couple that she'd met at a club called Rockwell, Miami. After they'd fallen asleep, Venegas stole various valuables estimated at around $14,000. The couple recognized her from a mugshot subsequently shown to them by the authorities. Venegas was charged with grand theft in the Malhai case as police continued their investigation into her criminal activity, suspecting that others had been victimized. Number 1. Paulina Karina Diaz. Colombian model and TV presenter Paulina Karina Diaz was arrested in 2017 as part of an investigation into an unsolved case of blackmail and kidnapping from December of 2011. Local authorities reported that Diaz had taken advantage of her looks to lure businessman Hugo Lopez Moncayo and lawyer Milton Caro Villamil into a room at a Cali club. Accomplices then locked them inside and subsequently asked for an estimated $1 million in ransom. But Moncayo and Villamil were never seen again. By the time that a kidnapping task force identified Diaz as having played a role in the incident, 2 other people had been convicted and sentenced to 23 years in jail. Prior to her arrest, the 23-year-old model had been presented a sports section on a show called Guaya Magazine on Channel 2. According to her employers, Diaz worked without a fixed salary in a bid to increase her fame and social media reach. A man only identified by his nickname as La Bruja, or the Witch, was arrested alongside Diaz, and he'd been allegedly tasked with monitoring and guarding the kidnapping victims. A capture photo of Diaz and La Bruja in front of an official billboard was released, but no further updates on their legal situation have been made available by Colombian authorities. Thanks for watching. Would you want to get famous from your mugshot and have a chance to launch a modeling career if it meant spending a year in prison? Let us know in the comments section below.